When we take the meditation posture, we're developing a posture and an attitude of attentive openness to whatever arises. And this is actually a very brave thing to do. I think maybe we wouldn't actually even begin on this journey if we knew how brave that is. To just sit and open our minds, open our whole being with attentive openness to whatever might arise. Because in so doing, we are actually opening ourselves beyond our usual, habitual view of ourself and of reality. We actually don't know what we're going to see. And one of the first things that one gradually begins to perceive is that perhaps we aren't quite who we thought we were. And sometimes that's quite embarrassing, because maybe we thought we were kind, and we see that we have a lot of aggressive and downright mean thoughts. Maybe we thought that we were quite a spiritual person, perhaps, and we find that we obsess for hours about all the things we want and crave and desire, and things that would make us feel so good, and sex and food and everything. In any case, what I'm getting at is that we sit and we just look with the openness, as much openness as we can. And in so doing, we're opening ourselves to letting go, or seeing through, or at least seeing exactly who we are and what we do. We're setting ourselves up, you could say, for some of the ways, and eventually all of the ways in which we conventionally and habitually view reality, to let those fall apart. So it's very brave. And this path is considered the path of the brave ones, which doesn't mean we are brave, but it means that we begin to cultivate our fearlessness, cultivate our wish to move from narrow to open, to move from holding on to things very rigidly to a more flexible, adaptable, open stance way of looking at things. What happens on the journey, which many of us in this room have already experienced, you may have even experienced it today, is that every once in a while you completely come to your edge. You come to the place where you know you're about to make a step into what is as yet not quite known to you. You're just about to sort of step over the edge. This happens again and again on the spiritual journey, that we meet this place of just going a little further than we ever have before in terms of how we perceive reality. It's basically going from being so dedicated, so habitually committed to a static way of perceiving and thinking, to a fluid, open way of perceiving and thinking. But when we come to that edge, it brings up all of our fear. Part of the spiritual journey is coming to know the nature of fear, because you can't just move from a very narrow and rigid way of perceiving and thinking into an open way of thinking. You can't just drop all of those old, comforting conditionings and concepts without it being accompanied by some fear and trembling. So I said that the journey is one from narrowness to openness. You could also say it's a journey of moving from fear to fearlessness, or from a gradual process of becoming less and less afraid. In case you think there's something wrong with feeling fear, you should know that the definition of a fully enlightened being is one who is completely fearless. So it's a huge accomplishment to be completely fearless. As we travel on the path, we get to know fear. We get to know the nature of fear. And gradually, we become much more adaptable and much more able to stay open and attentive to whatever might arise. Another definition of a fully awakened person is someone who stays open to their emotions and thoughts and people and anything that might arise without centralizing into a self or centralizing back into themselves, just reaching out, opening out. So we move in that direction, but we don't have any big expectations of what time of day or what month or year we're supposed to arrive. In fact, as they say, the path is the goal. Step by step, each step, that's all there is. There actually never is any future point. There's just now and how you relate to right now. Because fear is inevitable in this process of growing up and of surrendering and of letting go of old, crippling ways of perceiving and thinking, it's essential that from the very beginning we develop trust and inner strength. So the question comes, where do we look when we are afraid, when we feel that we can't handle what's happening? Where do we look for strength? And in what do we place our trust? So first I'd like to give a very succinct, and I have always found quite useful teaching on looking in the wrong places. The story of our life. The personal autobiography of everybody in the room. And this is the teaching on the three lords of materialism. If you want to read more about this, you can read in the introduction to Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. He writes about this. So the three lords of materialism are the Lord of Form, the Lord of Speech, and the Lord of Mind. And there's somewhat a description of when the going gets rough, what we usually cling to. And in fact, they're a description of what we cling to even when the going isn't rough. Kind of a description of ego. A description of how ego is just a lot of habits. You know, I was thinking today that a good description of ego is just addiction. And the reason that there's fear, as we're sort of seeing through the patterns and habits of this addiction, is the same reason we experience fear when we set out to give up any addiction. We have received so much security from this addiction and the letting go of it, which we know is going to bring actually much more lasting happiness and freedom, is extremely uncomfortable. So the Lord of Form, this is saying how we look to things of all kinds, for security and comfort. How we look to things for strength, and we put our trust in things. So at the level of common addictions, that's like saying when we feel anxious, and so we reach for a drink, or we smoke dope, or take other drugs, or we eat. And all of us have our cravings and addictions. Some are more crippling and damaging to ourselves and others, but we all have them. Things that if we actually can't do them, we feel extremely anxious and like we're going to die if we can't have that piece of chocolate. You can actually create these addictions really easily, you know. You just every night have a warm bath, and then one night you say, tonight I'm not going to have one, and you freak out. So we put a lot of energy into reaching out and grasping at things. And the thing is that actually when we think of it, a lot of these things we already know that there's a hangover and that it doesn't bring any kind of happiness. In fact, it weakens us. We already know that. Nevertheless, one can't underestimate the power of these feelings, and therefore one can't underestimate the kind of bravery it takes to begin to turn these habits and patterns that we call ego, to turn them around. We actually, even though we are quite an intelligent species, you know, on the charts of the evolution of consciousness, we're pretty high up there. And some of us are even called geniuses, you know, and brilliant people. But I think really we're pretty stupid. When it really comes down to it, we all have these habits that we look to things outside of ourselves. We look for strength in what weakens us. And in a lot of cases, these things that we reach for are very tied up with our identity of who we are, how we hold ourselves together. So maybe what we reach for is nature, and we have this image of ourselves as one who loves solitude and nature and goes off into the wilderness in their kayak. Well, personally, I'm one of those people. I like to do that kind of thing. So it's not putting down any of these things, but more to say that we use them to comfort ourselves. We use them to try to avoid just being present in the moment. They somehow are a concept or an image or an ideal that's between us and the direct experience of reality. We have an image of ourselves as a creative person or a scholar, but some sense of seeking, holding on, grasping at things. And even though we may think we ourselves, personally, we are not materialistic, nevertheless, I think most of us know what it's like, that good feeling of buying something new. The Lord of speech is how we use our beliefs to limit ourselves or weaken ourselves or use our beliefs. I think when Trungpa Rinpoche is talking about this, he talks about them all as looking for alternatives to just being right where we are, with a clear, direct experience of reality. So this goes for all the isms, political beliefs, religions, all of these things. It definitely can go for Buddhism, meditation, any kind of belief system. We may not think it's dogma. We may think it's like a very liberated belief system. But nevertheless, it's so tied up with our identity and so colors our view of the world. And it actually doesn't bring any lasting happiness. For instance, when people come into the Buddhist teachings, this is something I'm very familiar with from my personal experience and through working and talking with a lot of people. Often people come in with such passion and enthusiasm, joining a new group and a new way of looking, and they just eat up the teachings, and then you hear them having arguments with people who don't believe in the truth of suffering. In other words, it becomes something else that you go to battle for. We see this in the ecology movement, that it's such a worthy thing
Yo, what's up? Welcome to Tannerfruit.Loops. Just kicking it out here, getting back after long weekend. Very fun weekend, but a long one indeed. Lots of traveling, lots of staying up, lots of just going hard, you know. Now I'm back at the tower and recovering. I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm back to it, you know. Don't recover from lack of sleep at my ripe old age. But I'm getting it back. I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, and so I'm back. Gonna do this tonight. And yeah. Probably gonna keep it short, you know, we'll see how she goes. Starting out trying to meditate on some stuff, but yeah, it was, you know, trying new ideas out here. All right, I'm gonna keep it going, try something new here. Okay. Little technical difficulty there. Little technical difficulty there.
to not become attached to anything, to not try to make anything special over something else, to not grasp and cling and try to make things last, or get shorter for that matter, but just let it be as it is. So this teaching on the three lords of materialism is just a very simple way of describing how we go astray from the true nature of reality, from the true nature of our being. One of the ways is mindfulness. From mindfulness comes inner strength and the development of trust. Basically, the development of trust is a growing confidence that the nature of things is to change and fall apart and become something else, and you don't have to freak out about it. One of the ways that we develop this inner strength and this trust is mindfulness, and I'll talk a bit about that. And the other is the four limitless ones. This is Maitri, compassion, joy, and equanimity. It's said that these four are the causes and conditions that allow for this inner strength and this trust to grow. They are the necessary warmth that allows the flower to grow and blossom. Sometimes they're actually called the four great catalysts of awakening. They encourage growth from fear to fearlessness, from uptight to flexible. In some sense, it's all a question of developing a flexible mind, developing a flexible identity, even you could say, that's capable of fluid transformation. I'd like to say a bit about mindfulness and about Maitri, the first of the four limitless ones. So mindfulness begins with the meditation practice. And it is, as I said at the beginning of the talk, begins with our posture with an open attentiveness to whatever arises. And it's basically a development of trust in the present moment and a willingness to contact it directly. And that present moment can be coldness or hotness, hardness or softness. That present moment can be gloom and doom, darkness, inner darkness. That present moment can be lightness. It can be sorrow. It comes in a million different forms. More than a million. Limitless, always changing. To have a completely direct experience of reality is another pseudonym for fully enlightened.
All right, y'all. Trying some new stuff out here, you know. I came across that I guess a lecture, just like words from forgot her name. Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron. Yeah, listened to that the other day, really liked it. I couldn't really I picked up some of it, but I was busy making loops and sounds. Anyways, I'm calling her quits for the night. A little shorter one tonight, but that's okay. That's it. This is Fruit Loops, and this was all improvised, just making stuff up, just seeing how I feel, and making stuff. But yeah, I will be back probably this upcoming weekend, and I'll announce it this time. But anyways, I hope you all have a nice evening.
The quality of experience as it is, and trust that. That is trustworthy. We can stay with it. Many of us, maybe all of us, find it extremely difficult to just stay with the moment. And maybe all of us, to greater and lesser degrees, dissociate continually. But mindfulness is a tool for bringing us back to the actual sort of tactile taste, smell, quality, feel of the present moment.